Anything on that? Water.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Samsadava Naladinayoga Pranaya Karunya Gana Ganatvam Bhaktasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Mahaprabhu Kirtanitya Gita Vavitramadya Manasurasena Romanchakam Patsutarangabajo Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shri Vigrahada Nityanana Shringaratan Mandira Marjanalo Yuktasya Bhaktam Samyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Chaturvida Shri Bhagava Prasada Swadanya Triptam Haribhakta Shangan Deva Triptim Atasadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shri Adhikama Dayarapara Madhurya Lila Rupanana Pratishana Svana Lolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Nikunjayo no Jirisidai Yaya Vidyuktira Pekshaniya Tatra Vidaksha Ativallabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Sakshatharitena Samasta Sastre Yuktastatha Bhavyuktaivasadhi Kintu Prabhuya Priyaiva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Gatopi Yayantu Vamstasya Yashasti Sanyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Kacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyadeshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namaste Narasimhaya, Dalla Dalla Hiranyakashe Purvakshaha, Vilatankanalaye, Ito Nashinga Parato Nashingo, Yato Yato Yami Tato Nashingo, Bahir Nashinga Hridaye Nashinga, Nrsimhamadim Sharanam Prapade, Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam, Advuta Shringam, Dalita Hiranyakashipur Tanu Bringam, Keshavadita Narahari Rupa, Jai Jagadish Hare, Jai Jagadish Hare, Jai Jagadish Hare, Jaya Nrsimha Dev, Nrsimha Dev, Nrsimha Dev, Jaya Nrsimha Dev, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Vrindayi Tusdevyaya Priyayi Sadasya Vishwahati Tadadevi Satyavatyai Namo Namaha Vrindayi Tusdevyaya Priyayi Sadasya Vishwahati Tadadevi Satyavatyai Namo Namaha Vrindayi Tusdevyaya Priyayi Sadasya Vishwahati Tadadevi Satyavatyai Namo Namaha.
Vilasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namaha, Radha Krishna Seva Pavo, Eya Vilasi, Ye Tumhara Charanala, Tara Vamsha Purna Ho, Kripa Kori Karo Kare, Vrindavanavasi, Moraye Avilas, Vilas Kunye Diyovas, Nayane Herivo Sada, Yugala Ruparasi, Danadhara, Sakhiranugata Karo, Sivaradhikara Di, Karoni Jagasi, Dinna Krishna Dase Koi, Yena Mora Hoi, Shriradha Govinda Preme Narayana Bhasi. Tani tani cha papani brahmatyari kani cha, tani tani prana shante darshina pade pade. Yani kani cha papani brahmatyari kani cha, tani tani prana shante darshina pade pade. Yani kani cha papani brahmatyari kani cha, tani tani prana shante darshina pade pade. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi. Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi.
You listen to the lecture devotion every morning. Would you like to listen to that?
Yes.
Yes.
Remember chapter 4?
Yes. Chapter 4.
Which part?
Nectar devotion.
Right there.
Who wants to read? You know what the devotee wants to read?
Yes.
Yes, Gurmat.
Yeah, there it is.
You want to read it?
Yes, Gurmat.
We're just getting
Just getting the.
Lecture devotion.
Yes, Gurmat. Chapter 4. Just getting the book, Gurmat. Chapter 4.
Yes.
Here's the title chapter. That's right.
The book?
Yes, Gurmat. Chapter 4.
What is chapter 4 called?
Chapter 4 is called Devotional Service Surpasses All Liberation.
Chapter 5.
Chapter 5 is the purity of devotional service.
Chapter 4.
Sorry,
Start.
Gurmat? Chapter 4.
Four.
That's 4. Chapter 4, Nectar of Devotion. How much a devotee is seriously attached to the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be understood from the statement of Maharaj Pitu, Adiraj, which is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 20th chapter, verse 24. He prays to the Supreme Personality of Godhead thus: My dear Lord, if after taking liberation I have no chance of hearing the glories of your Lordship, glories chanted by pure devotees from the core of their hearts in praise of your lotus feet, and if I have no chance for this honey of transcendental bliss, then I shall never ask for liberation or this so-called spiritual emancipation. I shall simply always pray unto your Lordship that you give me millions of tongues and millions of ears so that I can constantly chant and hear your transcendental glories. End quote. The impersonalists desire to merge into the existence of the Supreme, but without keeping their individuality, they have no chance of hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord. Because they have no idea of the transcendental form of the Supreme Lord, there is no chance of their chanting and hearing his transcendental activities. In other words, unless one is already beyond liberation, one cannot relish the transcendental glories of the Lord, nor can one understand the transcendental form of the Lord. A similar statement is found in Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 14th chapter, verse 44. Shukadev Goswami addresses Parikshit Maharaj and there says, quote, the great soul King Bharat was so much attached to the service of the lotus feet of Krishna that he very easily gave up his lordship over the earthly planet and his affection for his children, society, friends, royal opulence, and beautiful wife. He was so very lucky that the goddess of fortune was pleased to offer him all kinds of material concessions, but he never accepted any of these material opulences. End quote. Shukadev Goswami praises this behavior of King Bharat and very highly. He says, quote, any person whose heart is attracted by the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Madhusudana, does not care even for that liberation which is aspired to by many great sages, what to speak of material opulences. In the Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 11th chapter, verse 25, there is a similar statement by Vritasura, who addressed the Lord as follows. My dear Lord, by leaving your transcendental service, I may be promoted to the planet of Dhruvalok, the pole star, or I may gain lordship over all planetary systems of the universe. But I do not aspire for this, nor do I wish the mystic perfections of yoga practice, nor do I aspire spiritual emancipation. All I wish for, my Lord, is your association and the transcendental service eternally. This statement is confirmed by Lord Shiva in the Srimad Bhagavatam 6th canto, 17th chapter, verse 28. Whereas Lord Shiva addresses Sati thus, my dear Sati, persons who are devoted to Narayan, Krishna, are not afraid of anything. If they are elevated to the higher planetary systems, or if they get liberation from material contamination, or if they are pushed down to the hellish condition of life, or, in fact, in any situation whatever, they are not afraid of anything, simply because they have taken shelter of the lotus feet of Narayan. For them, any position in the material world is as good as another. There is a similar statement by Indra, the king of heaven, in Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 18th chapter, verse 74. There Indra addresses Mother Diti in this manner. My dear mother, persons who have given up all kinds of desires and are simply engaged in devotional service to the Lord know that what is actually their self-interest. Such persons are actually serving their self-interest and are considered first-class experts in the matter of advancing in the perfectional stage of life. In the 7th canto of Bhagavatam, 6th chapter, verse 25, Maharaj Prahlad says, my dear friends, born into atheistic families, if you can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then there is nothing more rare in this world. In other words, if the Supreme Lord is pleased with you, then any desire you may have within the core of your heart can be fulfilled without any doubt. As such, what is the use of elevating yourself by the result of fruitive activities, which are automatically achieved in all events by the modes of material nature? And what is the use for you of spiritual emancipation or liberation from material bondage? If you are always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord and always relishing the nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord, then there is no necessity for any of these. By this statement of Prahlad Maharaj, it is clearly understood that one who takes pleasure in chanting and hearing the transcendental glories of the Lord has already surpassed all kinds of material benedictions, including the result of pious fruitive activities, sacrifices, even liberation from material bondage. Similarly, in the same 7th canto, 8th chapter, verse 42, when the demigods are offering prayers to Lord Nrsimha, the Indra and the King of Heaven says, O Supreme One, that these demons talk of our share of participation in the performance of ritualistic sacrifices, but simply by your appearance as Lord Nrsimhadev, you have saved us from terrible fears. Actually, our shares in the sacrificial performances are due to you only, because you are the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices. You are the super soul of every living entity, and therefore you are the actual owner of everything. Long were our hearts always filled with fear of this demon, Hiranyakashipu. But you are so kind toward us by killing him. You have removed that fear from within our hearts and given us the chance to place your lordship within our hearts again. For persons who are engaged in transcendental loving service to your lordship, all the opulences which were taken away from us by the demons are counted as nothing. Devotees do not care even for liberation. What to speak of these material opulences? Actually, we are not the enjoyers of the fruit of sacrifices. Our only duty is to always be engaged in your service, for you are the enjoyer of everything. The purport of this statement by Indra is that beginning from Brahma, down to the insignificant ant, no living entities are meant for enjoying the material opulences. They are simply meant for offering everything to the Supreme Proprietor, the personality of Godhead. By doing so, they automatically enjoy the benefit. The example can be cited again of the different parts of the body collecting foodstuffs and cooking them so that ultimately a meal may be offered to the stomach. After it has gone to the stomach, all parts of the body equally enjoy the benefit of the meal. So similarly, everyone's duty is to satisfy the Supreme Lord. Then automatically everyone will become satisfied. A similar verse is found in the 8th canto, 3rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 20. Gajendra says there, quote, "My dear Lord, I have no experience of transcendental bliss derived from your devotional service, so therefore I have asked you for some favor. But I know that persons who are pure devotees and have, by serving the lotus feet of great souls, become freed from all material desires, are always merged in the ocean of transcendental bliss, and, as such, are always satisfied simply by glorifying your auspicious characteristics. For them there is nothing else to aspire to or pray for." In the 9th canto of Bhagavatam, 4th chapter, verse 67, the Lord of Vaikuntha replies to Durvasa Muni, thus, "My dear devotees are always satisfied being engaged in devotional service, and therefore they do not aspire even after the 5 liberated stages, which are 1. To be one with me, 2. To achieve residence on my planet, 3. To have my opulences, 4. To possess bodily features similar to mine, and 5. To gain personal association with me. So, when they are not interested even in these liberated positions, you can know how little they care for material opulence or even material liberation." There is a similar prayer by the Nagapatnis, the wives of the Kaliya serpent. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 16th chapter, verse 37, the Nagapatnis say there, "Dear Lord, the dust of your lotus feet is very wonderful. Any person who is fortunate enough to achieve this dust does not care for heavenly planets, lordships over all the planetary systems, the mystic perfections of yoga, or even liberation from material existence. In other words, anyone who adores the dust of your lotus feet does not care a fig for all other perfectional stages." There is a similar statement in the 10th canto, 87th chapter, verse 21, where in the Shrutis, the Vedas personified, pray to the Lord as follows. "Dear Lord, it is very difficult to understand spiritual knowledge. Your appearance here, just as you are, is to explain to us this most difficult subject of knowledge of the Spirit. As such, your devotees who have left their domestic comforts to associate with the liberated acharyas, teachers, are now fully merged in devotional service of your Lordship, and thus they do not care for any so-called liberation." In explaining this verse, it should be noted that spiritual knowledge means understanding the self and the supersoul, or superself. The individual soul and the supersoul are qualitatively one, and therefore both of them are known as Brahman, or spirit. But knowledge of Brahman is very difficult to understand. There are so many philosophers engaged in the matter of understanding the soul, but they are unable to make any tangible advancement. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that out of many millions of persons, only one may try to understand what is spiritual knowledge. And out of many such persons who are trying to understand, only one or a few may know what is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this verse says that spiritual knowledge is very difficult to achieve. And so in order to make it more easily attainable, the Supreme Lord himself comes in his original form as Sri Krishna and gives his instruction directly to an associate like Arjuna, just so that people in the general may take advantage of this spiritual knowledge. This verse also explains that liberation means having completely given up all material comforts of life. Those who are impersonalists and are satisfied by simply being liberated from the material circumstances, but those who are devotees can automatically give up material life and also enjoy transcendental bliss of hearing and chanting the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 20th chapter, verse 34, Lord Krishna says to Uddhava, "My dear Uddhava, the devotees who have completely taken shelter of my service are so steadfast in devotional service that they have no other desire. Even if they are offered the 4 kinds of spiritual opulences, they will refuse to accept them. So what to speak of their desiring anything within the material world? Similarly, Lord Krishna says in another passage of the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 14th chapter, verse 14, My dear Uddhava, a person whose consciousness is completely absorbed in mind, thought, and activities does not aspire even to occupy the post of Brahma, or the post of Indra, or the post or lordship of over the planets, or the 8 kinds of mystic perfections, or even liberation itself. In the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th chapter, verse 6, Lord Shiva says to Devi, My dear Devi, this great Brahmana, sage Markandeya, has attained unflinching faith and devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such, he does not aspire after any benedictions, including liberation from the material world. Similarly, there is a statement in Padma Puran describing the ritualistic function during the month of Kartik, October-November. During this month in Vrindavan, it is the regulator principle to pray daily to Lord Krishna in his Damodar form. The Damodar form refers to Krishna in his childhood mood when he was tied up with a rope by his mother, Yashoda. Dama means rope and Udar means the abdomen. So Mother Yashoda, being very disturbed by naughty Krishna, bound him around the abdomen with a rope, and thus Krishna is named Damodar. During the month of Kartik, Damodar is prayed as follows: My dear Lord, you are the Lord of all, the giver of all benedictions. There are many demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva who sometimes offer benedictions to respective devotees. For example, Ravan was blessed with many benedictions by Lord Shiva, and Hiranyakashipu was blessed by Lord Brahma. But even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma depend upon the benedictions of Lord Krishna, and therefore Krishna is addressed as the Lord of all benefactors. As such, Lord Krishna can offer his devotees anything they want, but still the devotee's prayer continues. I do not ask you for liberation or any material facility up to the point of liberation. What I want as your favor is that I may always think of your form in which I see you now as Damodar. You are so beautiful and attractive that my mind does not want anything besides this wonderful form. In this same prayer, there is another passage in which it is said, My dear Lord Damodar, once when you were playing as a naughty boy in the house of Nanda Maharaj, you broke the box containing yogurt, and because of that, Mother Yashoda considered you an offender and tied you with rope to the household grinding mortar. At that time, you delivered the 2 sons of Kuber, Nalakuvera and Manigriva, who were staying there as 2 Arjun trees in the yard of Nanda Maharaj. My only request is that by your merciful pastimes, you may simply deliver me. The story behind this verse is that the 2 sons of Kuber, the treasure of the demigods, were puffed up on account of the opulence of their father. And so once on a heavenly planet, they were enjoying themselves in a lake with some naked damsels of heaven. At that time, the great saint Narada Muni was passing on the road and was sorry to see the behavior of the sons of Kuber. Seeing Narada passing by, the damsels of heaven covered their bodies with cloth. But the 2 sons, being drunkards, did not have this decency. Narada became angry with their behavior and cursed them as thus: You have no sense, so it is better that you become trees instead of the sons of Kuber. Upon hearing this, the boys came to their senses and begged Narada to be pardoned for their offenses. Narada then said, Yes, you shall become trees, Arjuna trees, and you will stand in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. But Krishna himself will appear in time as the foster son of Nanda, and he will deliver you. In other words, the curse of Narada was a benediction to the sons of Kuber, because indirectly it was foretold that they would be able to receive the favor of Lord Krishna. After that, Kuber's sons stood as 2 big Arjuna trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj until Lord Damodar, in order to fulfill the desire of Narada, dragged the grinding mortar to which he was tied and struck the 2 trees, violently causing them to fall down. From out of these fallen trees came Nalakuvera and Manigriva, who had by then become great devotees of the Lord. There is a passage in the Hayashishya Pancharatra which states, quote, My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I do not want any resultant benediction from my religious life, nor do I want any economic development, nor do I want any sense enjoyment, nor liberation. I simply pray to be an eternal servant at your lotus feet. Kindly oblige me and give me this benediction. In the same Hayashirsha Pancharatra, after Nrsingadev wanted to give benedictions to Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad did not accept any material benediction and simply asked the favor of the Lord to remain his eternal devotee. In this connection, Prahlad Maharaj cited the example of Hanuman, the eternal servant of Lord Ramachandra, who also set an example by never asking any material favor from the Lord. He always remained engaged in the Lord's service. That is the ideal character of Hanuman, for which he is still worshipped by all devotees. Prahlad Maharaj also offered his respectful obeisances unto Hanuman. There is a well-known verse spoken by Hanuman in which he says, "My dear Lord, if you like, you can give me salvation from this material existence, or the privilege of merging into your existence. But I do not wish any of these things. I do not want anything which diminishes my relationship with you as servant to master, even after liberation." In a similar passage in the Narada Pancharatra, it is stated, "My dear Lord, I do not wish any professional stage by performing the ritualistic religious ceremonies, or by economic development, or by sense gratification or liberation. I simply pray that you grant me the favor of keeping me under your lotus feet. I do not wish any kind of liberation, such as Salokya, to reside in your planet, or Sarupya, to have the same bodily features as you. I simply pray for your favor that I may always be engaged in your loving service." Similarly, in the 6th canto, 14th chapter, verse 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit inquires from Shukadeva Goswami, "My dear Brahmana, I understand that the demon Vritasura was a greatly sinful person, and that his mentality was completely absorbed in the modes of passion and ignorance. How did he develop to such a perfectional stage of devotional service to Narayan? I have heard that even great persons who have undergone severe austerities and who are liberated with full knowledge must strive to become a devotee of Lord. It is understood that such persons are very rare and almost never to be seen. So I'm astonished that Vritasura became such a devotee." In the above verse, the most important thing to be noted is that there may be many liberated persons who have merged into the existence of the impersonal Brahman, but a devotee of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, is very, very rare. Even out of millions of liberated persons, only one is fortunate enough to become a devotee. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 8th chapter, verse 20, Queen Kunti is praying to Lord Krishna at this time of his departure. "My dear Krishna, you are so great that you're inconceivable even to the great stalwart scholars and Paramahamsas, fully liberated souls. So, if great sages who are transcendental to all reactions of material existence are unable to know you, then as far as we are concerned, belonging to less intelligent women class, how is it possible for us to know your glories? How can we understand you?" In this verse, the particular thing to be noted is that the personality of Godhead is not understood by great liberated persons, but only by devotees such as Queen Kunti in her humbleness. Although she was a woman and was considered less intelligent than a man, still she realized the glories of Krishna. That is the purport of this verse. Another passage which is important is in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 7th chapter, verse 10. And it is called the Atma Rama verse. In the Atma Rama verse, it is stated that even those who are completely liberated from material contamination are attracted by the transcendental qualities of Krishna. There's a footnote. This Atma Rama verse was once nicely explained by Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami. There is a detailed explanation of this verse in the author's teaching of Lord Chaitanya. The purport of this verse is that a liberated soul has absolutely no desire at all for material enjoyment. He is wholly freed from all kinds of material desires, yet still he is irresistibly attracted by the desire to hear and understand the pastimes of the Lord. We may therefore conclude that the glories and pastimes of the Lord are not material. Otherwise, how could the liberated persons known as Atma Ramas be attracted by such pastimes? This is the important point in this verse. From the above statement, it is found that a devotee is not after any stages of liberation. There are 5 stages of liberation, already explained as being 1, to become one with the Lord; 2, to live on the same planet as the Lord; 3, to obtain the same bodily features as the Lord; 4, to have the same occupancy as the Lord; and 5, to have constant association of the Lord. Out of these 5 liberated stages, the one which is known as Sayuja, or to merge into the existence of the Lord, is the last to be accepted by a devotee. The other 4 liberations, although not desired by devotees, still are not against the devotional ideals. Some of the liberated persons who have achieved these 4 stages of liberation may also develop affection for Krishna and be promoted to Goloka Vrindavan, planet in the spiritual sky. In other words, those who are already promoted to the Vaikuntha planets and who possess the 4 kinds of liberation may also sometimes develop affection for Krishna and become promoted to Krishna Loka. So those who are in the 4 liberated stages may still be going through different stages of existence. In the beginning, they may want the opulence of Krishna, but at the mature stage, the dormant love for Krishna exhibited in Vrindavan becomes prominent in their hearts. As such, the pure devotees never accept the liberation of Sayuja or become one with the Supreme, though sometimes they may accept as favorable the other 4 liberated states. Out of many kinds of devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the one who is attracted to the original form of the Lord, Krishna, in Vrindavan is considered to be foremost, first-class devotee. Such a devotee is never attracted by the opulence of Vaikuntha, or even of Dwarka, the royal city where Krishna ruled. The conclusion of Srila Rupa Goswami is that the devotees who are attracted by the pastimes of the Lord in Gokul or Vrindavan are the topmost devotees. A devotee who is attached to a particular form of the Lord does not wish to redirect his devotion to other forms. For example, Hanuman, the devotee of Lord Ramchandra, knew that there's no difference between Lord Ramchandra and Lord Narayan, and yet he still wanted to render service only unto Lord Ramchandra. That is due to the specific attraction of a particular devotee. There are many, many forms of the Lord, but Krishna is still the original form. Though all of the devotees of the different forms of the Lord are in the same category, still it is to be said that those who are devotees of Lord Krishna are the topmost in the list of all devotees. Chapter 5, the purity of devotional service. All of the previous instructions imparted by Srila Rupa Goswami in his broad statements can be summarized thus. As long as one is materially inclined or desires emerging into the spiritual effulgence, one cannot enter into the realm of pure devotional service. Next, Rupa Goswami states that devotional service is transcendental to all material considerations, and that it is not limited to any particular country, class, society, or circumstance. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service is transcendental and has no cause. Devotional service is executed without any hope for gain, and it cannot be checked by any material circumstances. It is open for all, without any distinction, and it is a constitutional occupation of all of the living entities. In the Middle Ages, after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya's great associate, Lord Nityananda, a class of priestly persons claimed to be the descendants of Nityananda, calling themselves the Goswami caste. They further claimed that the practice and spreading of devotional service belonged only to their particular class, which were known as Nityananda Vamsha. In this way, they exercised their artificial power for some time, until Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the powerful acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, completely smashed their idea. There was a great hard struggle for some time, but it has turned out successfully, and it is now correctly and practically established that devotional service is not restricted to a particular class of men. Besides that, anyone who is engaged in devotional service is already at the status of being a high-class Brahmana. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's struggle for this movement has come out successful. It is on the basis of his position that anyone can now become a Gaudiya Vaishnava from any part of the world or any part of the universe. Anyone who is a pure Vaishnava is situated transcendentally, and therefore the highest qualification in the material world, namely to be in the mode of goodness, has already been achieved by such a person. Our Krishna consciousness movement in the Western world is based on the above-mentioned proposition of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, our spiritual master. On his authority, we are claiming members from all sections of the Western countries. The so-called Brahmanas claim that one who is not born into a Brahmana family cannot receive the sacred thread and cannot become a high-grade Vaishnava. But we do not accept such a theory because it is not supported by Rupa Goswami nor by the strength of various scriptures. Srila Rupa Goswami specifically mentions herein that every man has his birthright to accept the devotional service and to become Krishna conscious. He has given many evidences from the many scriptures, and he has especially quoted one passage from the Padma Puran, wherein the sage Vasishta tells King Dilip, "My dear king, everyone has a right to execute devotional service, just as he has a right to take early bath in the month of Magh, December, January." There is more evidence in the Skanda Puran, in the Kashikan portion, where it is said, in the country known as Mayurdhwaj, the lower caste of people who are considered less than the Sudras are also initiated in the Vaishnava cult of devotional service. And when they are properly dressed with tilak on their bodies and beads in their hands and on their necks, they appear to be coming from Vaikuntha. In fact, they look so very beautiful that immediately they surpass the ordinary Brahmanas. Thus, a Vaishnava automatically becomes a Brahmana. This idea is also supported by Sanatana Goswami in his book Hari Bhakti Vilas, in which is the Vaishnava Guide. Therein, he has clearly stated that any person who is properly initiated into the Vaishnava cult certainly becomes a Brahmana, and as much as metal known as kamsa, bell metal, is turned into gold by mixing with mercury. A bona fide spiritual master, under the guidance of authorities, can turn anyone to the Vaishnava cult, and so that naturally he may become to the topmost position of a Brahmana. Srila Rupa Goswami warns, however, that if a person is properly initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, he should not think that one simply by the acceptance of such initiations, his business is then finished. One still has to follow the rules and regulations very carefully. If after accepting the spiritual master and being initiated, one does not follow the rules and regulations of devotional service, then he is again fallen. One must be very vigilant to remember that he is part and parcel of the transcendental body of Krishna, and that it is the duty as part and parcel to give service to our whole, or Krishna. If we do not render service to Krishna, then again we fall down. In other words, simply becoming initiated does not elevate one to the position of a high-class Brahmana. One has to discharge the duties and follow the regular principles very rigidly. Sri Rupa Goswami also says that if one is regularly discharging devotional service, there will be no question of a fall down. But even if circumstantially there is some fall down, the Vaishnava need have nothing to do with the prayaschitta, a ritualist ceremony for purification. If someone falls down from the principles of devotional service, he need not take to the prayaschitta performance for reformation. He simply has to execute the rules and regulations for discharging devotional service, and this is sufficient for his reinstatement. This is a mystery of the Vaishnava devotional cult. Practically, there are three processes for elevating one to the platform of spiritual consciousness. These processes are called karma, jnana, and bhakti. Ritualistic performances are in the field of karma. Speculative processes are in the field of jnana. And one who has taken to bhakti, devotional service to the Lord, need have nothing to do with karma or jnana. It is already explained that pure devotional service is without any tinge of karma or jnana. Bhakti should have no tinge of philosophical speculation or ritualistic performances. In this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami gives evidence from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 21st chapter, verse 2, in which Lord Krishna says to Uddhava, the distinction between qualification and disqualification may be made in this way. Persons who are already elevated in discharging devotional service will never again take shelter of the process of fruitive activities or spiritual speculation. If one sticks to the devotional service and is conducted by regular principles given by the authorities and acharyas, that is the best qualification. This statement is supported in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 5th chapter, verse 17, wherein Sri Narada Muni advises Vyasadeva thus: even if one does not execute his specific occupational duty, but immediately takes direct shelter of the lotus feet of Hari, Krishna, there will be no fault on his part, and in all circumstances his position is secure. Even if, by some bad association, he falls down while executing devotional service, or even if he doesn't finish the complete course of devotional service and dies untimely, still he is not at a loss. A person who is simply discharging his occupational duty in Varna and Ashram, however, with no Krishna consciousness, practically does not gain the true benefit of human life. The purport is that all conditioned souls who are engaged very frantically in activities for sense gratification, without knowing that this process will never help them get out of material contamination, are awarded only with repeated birth and deaths. In the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is clearly stated by Rishabdev and to his sons, persons engaged in fruitive activities are repeatedly accepting birth and death, and until they develop a loving feeling for Vasudeva, there will be no question of getting out from these stringent laws of material nature. As such, any person who is very seriously engaged in his occupational duties in the Varnas and Ashrams, and who does not develop love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, should be understood to be simply spoiling his human form of life. This is confirmed also in the 11th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th chapter, verse 32, in which the Lord says to Uddhava, my dear Uddhava, any person who takes shelter of me in complete surrender and follows my instruction, giving up all occupational duties, is to be considered the first-class man. In this statement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is understood that people who are generally attracted to the philanthropic, ethical, moral, altruistic, political, and social welfare activities may be considered nice men only in the calculation of material world. From Srimad Bhagavatam and other authentic Vedic scriptures, we learn further that if a person simply acts in Krishna consciousness and discharges devotional service, he is considered to be far, far better situated than all those persons engaged in philanthropic, ethical, moral, altruistic, and social welfare activities. The same thing is still more emphatically confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter, verse 41, in which Karabhajan Muni addresses Maharaj Nimi as follows. My dear king, if someone gives up his occupational duties as they are prescribed for the different varnas and ashrams, but takes complete shelter, surrendering himself unto the lotus feet of the Lord, such a person is no more a debtor, and nor he has any obligation to perform the different kinds of activities we render to the great sages, ancestors, living entities, and family and society members. Nor has he any need to bother executing the 5 kinds of yajnas, sacrifices, for becoming free from its spiritual, sinful contamination. Simply by discharging this devotional service, he is freed from all kinds of obligations. The purport is that as soon as a man takes his birth, he is immediately indebted to so many sources. He is indebted to the great sages because he profits by reading their authoritative scriptures and books. For example, we take advantage of the books written by Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva has left us all of the Vedas. Before Vyasadev's writings, the Vedic literature was simply heard, and disciples would learn the mantras quickly by hearing and not by reading. Later on, Vyasadeva thought it wise to write down the Vedas, because in this age, people are short-memoried and unable to remember all of the instructions given by the spiritual master. Therefore, he left all the Vedic knowledge in the form of books such as the Purans, Vedanta, Mahabharata, and Srimad Bhagavatam. There are many other sages like Shankaracharya, Gautam Muni, and Narada Muni to whom we are indebted because we take advantage of their knowledge. Similarly, we are obliged to our forefathers because we take our birth in a particular family, or we take all advantages in inherit property. Therefore, we are indebted to the forefathers and have to offer them pinda, prasad. And after they are dead, similarly to the people in general, we are also indebted, as well as to our relatives, friends, and even animals such as cows and dogs who render us so much service. In this way, we are indebted to the demigods, to the forefathers, to the sages, to the animals, and to society in general. It is our
You're
duty.
gonna stop here? You've been. Yeah, what I want to do.
Janardhan Maharaj, please.
Want to do puja?
Yes.
Want to do puja now or later? Okay. You go for japa more?
Yes. Oh, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare.
What's the program today?
Guru Maharaj, the disciples, in initial conditions will come 10:30. Then we can go for a walk whenever we can go to gym also.
Are we ready at 15 minutes?
Sure.
We have a good crowd in the temple yesterday.
Good number.
You know that program in the park today?
Yes, come on.
In the park, there's so many distractions. People listen to it.
No, it's actually enclosed area also in the park.
And we have a good sound system, Guru Maharaj, so that everything will
Also,
carry.
it's a shade and covered area.
Okay, it's not like an open park.
No, it's like a proper shelter.
The program is at 6:30.
6:30, Guru Maharaj.
And who will be in the audience?
We've invited all the devotees, as well as some other outside folks as well, and so.
Thank you, Devu.
There should be one garland for this one also.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma Mando Mui Sadhana Mate Prasade Krishna Bhakti Hoya Hoite Guru Padmakya Chite Gauriya Arana Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati He Se Uttama Gati Je Prasade Purve Sarva Asha चक्षुदान दिलो देहि जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु श्रेय दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशिता प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेद गाय जहाँ चरिता श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधमा जनारा बंधु लोकनाथ लोके राजीवाना शिल प्रभुपा लोके राजीवाना हा हा प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पद छाया एबे जश गुशक त्रिभुवना शिल प्रभुपाद पतित पवना जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा प्रभुपदा Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Jayati Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhatta Vrinda Hare Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhatta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
You want me to end this video?
Yep. Oh, you need to show the close up for all the deities.
Okay.
You do that?
Sure.
Finish it, I guess. Thank you. You can end it off.
How do I end it? I didn't want to
Just
mess it.
cancel it. Should we cancel over here?
Okay. And I'm send.